Hi, how are you? I hope you are having a great day. Today's story is about a woman who saw a dead husband at the market holding another woman's hand. Is her husband really dead? Or does the man just look like her husband? Stay tuned because you are going to love this story. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button right now because I've got loads and loads of stories for you. Now just relax, I've got you. Okay, without further delay, let's get right into it. Abba was selling food at the market when she saw a little girl crying on the street in front of her store. People passing by and those selling there ignored the girl. No one stopped to help her. Feeling sorry for her, Abba took the girl to her store. She tried to calm her down and find out her name, but the girl just kept on crying. Abba noticed the girl was hungry, so she gave her food to eat. Abba tried to ask the girl where she came from, but the girl couldn't say. Abba's own daughter, Abina, was sleeping in the store. Abba knew the girl's parents might be worried, so she asked around the market, but no one knew the girl. Even though Abba needed the money and she had to keep her store open, she woke up Abina, closed the store, and took the girl to a police station nearby. At the police station, Abba found out the girl's father had reported her missing. Though Abba was going to leave the girl with the police, the girl held onto Abba and cried, not wanting her to go. Touched by the girl's need for comfort, Abba decided to stay with her at the police station till her father comes. Now, Abuaji's little daughter, Majwa, went missing while he had taken her and her nanny to the market to buy something. After leaving Majwa with the nanny to attend to something nearby, Abuaji received a distressing call from the nanny, informing him that his daughter is missing and couldn't be located. The nanny explained that Majwa was there beside her 1 minute, and the next minute had vanished. Devastated by his daughter's disappearance, Abuaji hurried back to the nanny's location, and together they searched desperately for her without success. Majwa was nowhere to be found. With his heart heavy with worry, Abuaji went to a nearby police station to report her daughter missing. The authorities immediately dispatched police officers to assist Abuaji in the search for Majwa. As they searched the area and continued their efforts, Abuaji received a call from the police station that his precious daughter had been found. Abuaji rushed to the police station and saw his daughter sitting on the laps of a strange woman sleeping. This surprised him since his daughter refused to go to anyone apart from him and her nanny. The woman had another little girl tied behind her back with a cloth. Both the woman and the girl behind her were sleeping. He approached them and gently tapped his daughter. She opened her eyes and immediately broke into tears when she saw him. The woman woke up with a start, and Abuaji looked at her. She was a very beautiful dark-skinned woman, but she looked tired and exhausted. He thanked her and offered her some money, but she refused the money. She said she only hoped someone would do the same thing for her daughter if she ever went missing. She said goodbye to Abuaji and was about to leave when his daughter ran after her and hugged her. It was only after the woman left that Abuaji realized he had not asked for her name or taken her number. He asked those around if anybody knew her, and he was told she was called Abba and that she sold food in the marketplace. The next day, he went with his daughter to the store to thank her. When his daughter saw Abba, she ran to hug her. Normally, his daughter never went to strangers, so he was surprised at how quickly she had bonded with Abba in such a short time. Abba seemed surprised to see him and offered to give him some food. He declined, but his daughter wanted to eat the food. This was surprising as his daughter had to be forced to eat even a little bit of food. Curious, Abuaji decided to taste the food himself. It turned out the rice and stew he ate was the best he had ever tasted. This woman can cook, he told himself. As they ate, they talked about how she had found his daughter alone in the streets and saved her. Abba had a way of describing things that made him laugh. There was something about her that intrigued him. Being around her, he felt at peace, and he could see that his daughter felt the same way as she played with Abba's daughter. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. Abuaji started his own construction business when he was very young. The company did very well and became one of the best in the country. Later, he fell in love with Majwa's mother and they got married. But 3 years ago, she died during childbirth. Her death had broken Abuaji, and his daughter was the only thing that made him happy and kept him sane. Until he met Abba. Abuaji began to develop new feelings for Abba he didn't understand. He couldn't stop thinking about her. So he went to her store often just to see her and talk to her. Eventually, he realized he was falling in love with her. Abba didn't know Abuadi was wealthy. He had only told her he was a construction worker. He had tried to give her money to thank her for saving his daughter, but she refused each time. He liked her cooking, and whenever he ate at her store, she wouldn't let him pay. Abba was different from any woman he had ever met. One day, Abuadi gathered his courage and asked Abba to go out with him, but she said no. She said she wanted to focus on herself and her daughter at that point in time. Abuadi thought she felt the same way as him and was very sad and disappointed when she turned him down. However, he couldn't stop thinking about her no matter how hard he tried. His daughter Majwa always wanted to see Abba and play with her daughter Abna. They became really good friends. Abba had also developed feelings for Abuadi. She liked his scent, how his eyes brightened when he laughed, and she adored his daughter Majwa. She really wanted to be with him and accept his proposal. But things were finally going right in her life. Since her late husband Kofi died, many men had shown interest in her. She was a beautiful woman, and she had not been interested in any of them. Abba was working on saving enough money to send her daughter Abuna to school. She also wanted to expand her food business. She had not given up on her dream of becoming an international chef. People loved her cooking, and she believed that if she concentrated on herself, one day she would be able to afford the fees for the culinary school. Following her heart will only distract her from her goals. She had followed her heart before and had messed things up in her life because of that. She didn't want to make that mistake again. Although Abba had made it clear to Abuadi that she was not ready to date, he still visited her store with Majwa once or twice a week. She always looked forward to their visits each time. One day at a market store, Abba saw a man holding another woman's hand, and they were buying things from the store opposite hers. When she looked at him, her heart started beating. The back of the man looked exactly like her dead husband's back. No, it can't be, she said to herself. Her husband had passed away 4 years ago. The man in front of her simply resembled him, but for some reason, she couldn't take her eyes off him. When he briefly turned around, she gasped. They looked exactly alike, which puzzled her. Acting on impulse, she stood up and approached the man. Tapping his shoulders, she said, "Excuse me." The man turned around and his face went pale, almost as if he had seen a ghost. For a moment, it seemed like he recognized her. This man looked exactly like her late husband. There was no doubt in her mind. It was really him. But how? It didn't make sense to her. "Kofi," she said. "Who?" the man asked. Even his voice sounded the same. "You've got the wrong person," he insisted. Abba's heart was pounding hard in her chest. "No, it can't be possible. How are you still alive?" "Kofi," she repeated. "I will know you anywhere. What is going on?" Tears welled up in her eyes as he tried to push her away, but she firmly held his hand. "I thought you were dead. Where have you been?" The woman with him looked at Abba curiously. He pulled his hand and insisted she had the wrong person. Abba stared at him for a second. Then she apologized. "I'm so sorry," she said. "You look just like my late husband." She apologized once again and left them. She spoke to the woman next to her store and then she walked away. There was no doubt in her mind that that man was Kofi, and she intended to uncover the truth of the situation. Abba hid behind the market stall, watching the man and woman walk through the market. She had asked the woman beside her stall to watch over her food for her. The man seemed to be in a hurry to leave the market. Quietly, she followed them unseen. Eventually, they reached a car parked on the street. Earlier, Abba had arranged for an Okada, a motorcycle taxi driver, to wait for her on the street. As soon as the couple drove off, she hopped on the back of the Okada and instructed him to follow the car. After about 20 minutes, the car stopped in front of a building. The man and the woman got out and the car drove away. Abba watched them as they walked into the building. She then asked the Okada driver to take her back to the market. Throughout that day, the image of the man she had seen lingered in her mind. She was convinced it was Kofi. But how could this be real? She clearly remembered attending his funeral with his entire family. How could he be alive? Abba questioned whether she was overthinking it. No, she told herself. She firmly believed it was him. The following day, before heading to the market, Abba went to the building she had seen them enter the day before. She stood under a tree across the building waiting. An hour later, the woman she had seen with the man came out of the building. After waiting for some time, Abba walked towards the building door and knocked. Moments later, it opened, revealing the man. His eyes widened with shock upon seeing her. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Go away before she returns." "Kofi," Abba said, "I would recognize you anyway. What is happening, and who is that woman? How are you still alive? I buried you and I mourned your death for months. I know it is you. What is going on?" "Okay, I'm not dead," Kofi told Abba. "Can you please leave me alone now? Go before she returns." "Why did you lie, Kofi? What about our daughter? How could you do this to me?" Abba cried. "I buried you for God's sake. What did I do to deserve this treatment from you? How can you let our daughter grow up without a father?" "I never wanted her," Kofi shouted. "I just didn't want you to leave me. You always acted like you were better and smarter than me. I just wanted to teach you a lesson. I never loved you. I only wanted to prove that I could have any woman I wanted. I never loved you and I never loved our daughter. I faked my death because I wanted you out of my life." Abba sank to the ground and looked at Kofi in shock. "You destroyed my life just to prove you could be with any woman you wanted. What have I ever done to you?" she cried. "Do you know how much I suffered after I thought you were dead? How could you be so heartless? Please leave and don't come back. My woman will return soon," Kofi said. Kofi grabbed her arm and tried to pull her out of the house. "Wait, Kofi," Abba said. "What about the money for the chop bar? My grandmother's chop bar." "Oh," Kofi replied, "that money is gone. I owed some people money in the village and I needed to leave and start afresh somewhere else. I needed the money, so I've used it all." He trashed, showing little remorse for his actions. "You've been managing fine on your own without me for years. Just go and forget we ever met." Kofi pushed her out of the house, and Abba almost fell. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. Silently, she cried as she made her way back to the market, reflecting on how she had reached this point in her life. Abba lived with her elderly grandmother on the outskirts of her village. She never knew her father, and her mother had passed away when she was just a toddler. Her grandmother was the only family she had, and she had always been there for Abba. Abba's grandma ran a food store, selling local dishes along with palm wine in their village. As a child, Abba would sit beside her grandmother in the kitchen as she cooked. She found cooking fascinating. Abba adored the delicious dishes her grandmother made. At a very young age, Abba knew she wanted to be a chef when she grew up. She aspired to travel the world, exploring different dishes and cultures, and her first step was to attend a culinary school in the city to become a professional chef. Abba was the most beautiful girl in her school, and all the boys wanted to date her. However, Abba was not interested in any of them. She had a dream of leaving the village to attend one of the best culinary schools in the city, and she knew her grandmother couldn't afford it. Luckily, the school offered scholarship to 5 students every year, and Abba wanted to be one of the 5 students. She understood that to win the scholarship, she had to give her best effort and focus on her studies, so she had no time for boys. In her final year at school, a new student named Kofi joined. Kofi used to live in the city with her auntie, but his parents resided in the village of Alaru. He was tall, light-skinned, and handsome. Soon, all the girls in the school became attracted to him. Many of the girls wanted to be his girlfriend, and rumors circulated in the school about him dating multiple girls at the same time. The day Kofi saw Abba, he was instantly attracted to her. She was the prettiest girl he had ever seen. Kofi was used to getting any girl he wanted, as no girl has ever said no to him. Abba, however, was different. She was always alone and walked by herself every day. One day, Kofi decided to approach her after school. As Abba was leaving the school gates, Kofi introduced himself to her. Abba just looked at him and asked him what he wanted. This reaction surprised Kofi, as other girls in the school would usually blush and smile shyly at him as he spoke to them. Kofi told Abba she was beautiful and that he wanted to be a friend. But Abba chuckled and told him she was not interested. Without saying another word, she walked away from him. The rejection was new to Kofi, but instead of giving up, he was determined to make Abba his girlfriend. Every day after school, Kofi waited outside the school gates for Abba and would walk beside her, talking to her whether she liked it or not. Eventually, Abba started smiling whenever she saw him, which made Kofi believe he was slowly winning her over. Abba believed Kofi was not good news. When Kofi approached her at the main gate that day, Abba understood why the girls in the school were attracted to him. He was very handsome, but despite his charm, she knew it could be trouble and she didn't want any distractions. Strangely, Kofi persisted in trying to get her attention. He waited for her at the main gates every day, and gradually she found herself looking forward to seeing him. Kofi had a good sense of humor and always made her laugh, and gradually she couldn't help but think about him daily. Abba found herself drifting from her original goal, unable to stop thinking about Kofi. The day Kofi asked her to be his girlfriend, he was confident she would say yes. He used all of his charms on her and showered her with sweet words, believing no woman could resist him. Abba looked at him that day and made him promise that he would not date any other girl in the school. Although he was actually dating 2 other girls from the school, he swore to Abba that he would date only her. After he promised, Abba happily agreed to be his girlfriend, and he hugged her with a sly smile, feeling like he had finally achieved his goal. As they began dating, Kofi noticed that Abba was always studying. She had told him she wanted to become an international chef, but Kofi didn't realize how serious she was about it. Abba was the school's top student, and Kofi saw a bright future ahead of her. He wondered whether Abba would still want to be with him once she got a scholarship and moved to the city. He decided he must do everything possible to keep her in the village with him, where he could control her. Abba had told Kofi that she wasn't interested in sleeping with him, and she preferred to wait till marriage to have sex. But Kofi believed that to keep her attached to him, he needed to find a way to sleep with her. Abba declined to meet him in secluded places where they are going to be alone, which made his plans more difficult. On his birthday, he thought of an evil plan. He took Abba to the beach and brought a wine and some glasses along with him. He waited till it was dark and there were no people around. He spiked a drink and gave it to her. Abba, unaware a drink has been spiked, drank all her wine. Kofi waited for her to get drowsy. Then he proceeded to kiss her and remove all her clothes. Abba started protesting, but Kofi didn't stop. He kept talking about how much he loved her and how special what they were about to do was to him. He slept with her that night on the beach. Abba woke up in the middle of the night on the beach. She felt cold. She looked beside her and she saw Kofi lying down with his eyes closed. It was very dark. She was about to stand up when she felt a sharp pain between her thighs. Suddenly, memories of what had happened came flooding back. She remembered Kofi kissing her, and she could feel his weight on her, but that was all she could remember. She shook Kofi and asked him what had happened between them. Kofi smiled and kissed her and told her it was the best night of his life. He thanked her for making his birthday special. Abba was confused. She didn't remember consenting to sleep with Kofi. She couldn't believe she had just given her virginity to Kofi just like that. Kofi had convinced her it was her idea and that she was the one who started it. Something felt off to Abba. It was true she loved Kofi, but she could not imagine herself asking Kofi to sleep with her. Abba broke into tears and Kofi wrapped his arms around her as she cried. She tried to push him away. "What if you've gotten me pregnant?" she shouted at Kofi. "Don't worry, I pulled out, so you have nothing to worry about," Kofi said. She was so disappointed in herself. Kofi promised to love her forever that night as he held her on the beach. A few weeks after this, Abba was called into the headmaster's office. They had just received news from the culinary school. She was one of the 5 students who had received the scholarship. Abba was beside herself with joy. That weekend, she went to the school for a blood test. It was her first time leaving a village. The school was big and she got a tour of the campus. She couldn't believe she was going to be studying there soon. The next week at school, she was called into the headmaster's office again. He looked sad. She was shocked to hear that she was pregnant based on the blood test. The headmaster was so disappointed in her. Her scholarship had been taken away by the school. She burst into tears and ran out of the headmaster's office in disbelief. She thought about terminating the pregnancy. But even if she did, her scholarship was gone. It all felt like a bad dream. She finished school when she was 3 months pregnant. Kofi initially refused to take responsibility for the pregnancy, but Abba's grandmother had threatened to report him to the village chief. Eventually, Kofi and his family came to perform the necessary traditional rites, and a small marriage ceremony was held for them to get married. Abba moved in with Kofi's family. Abba's life drastically changed. Kofi's true nature began to show as he became lazy and smoked and drank every day. He belittled Abba and accused her of ruining his life. In her third trimester, Abba lost her grandmother to a stroke, which almost led to complications with the pregnancy. She asked herself why all this was happening to her. Her grandmother left her the chop bar and a gold chain. After her grandmother's passing, Kofi's behavior towards Abba changed. He stopped drinking and he became very supportive. Abba gave birth to a bouncing baby girl and named her Abina. 2 months after the birth of Abina, Kofi suggested they sell the chop bar left to her by her grandmother and move to the city for a fresh start. He mentioned that he had a friend there who had secured a good job for him. He promised to save enough money so that by the time Abina turned 2, Abba can afford to attend the culinary school. She agreed to sell the chop bar. Kofi asked her to trust him with everything, and within a week, he found a buyer for the chop bar. On the day he sold the chop bar, Kofi came to the house in a hurry and told her he was meeting a friend in town. Abba wanted to ask him about the sales, but she decided to wait for him to come back. Abba was shocked that night when she received devastating news from Kofi's friend that Kofi had died in a tragic bus accident. The bus had overturned and caught fire, leading to the loss of everyone on the bus. Their bodies couldn't even be identified due to the severe burning. After mourning Kofi's loss for months, Abba found herself alone with no support. Kofi's family distanced themselves away from her after the funeral, offering no help for her or her baby. With the chop bar already sold by Kofi, Abba was left with no financial resources. A few months after Kofi's death, his mother asked her to leave her house. Abba begged her to allow her to stay there since she had nowhere else to go. But Kofi's mother's mind was made up. She gave her a month to evict the room. Abba realized she had no option than to sell the gold chain her grandmother had given her. Abba sold the chain for a small sum of money and moved to the city with Abina. She rented a small kiosk in the city for a month where she slept with Abina. Then she started selling pure water on the streets to make money. After a year, she saved enough money to pay for the kiosk for a whole year. Then with some of the savings, she began to cook and sell at the market. On her way back to the market after meeting Kofi, she felt lonely, and the only person she could think of calling was Abuaje. It was at that moment that she realized she was holding herself back because of her past. She told herself she deserved to be happy. From that moment on, she was determined to live life on her own terms. She was going to move on with her life and leave Kofi in the past. Thinking of Abuaje and Majua, she realized she deserved love, and she made up her mind to accept Abuaje's proposal. That weekend, when Abuaje and Majua visited, she surprised Abuaje by asking him to go out with her for drinks. Abuaje smiled and agreed. The next day, Abba received an unexpected delivery at her store. It was a beautiful dress with matching shoes, with a note inside saying, "For our date tonight." She didn't know much about Abuaje's job, but she knew he was a construction worker. That night, she wore the dress and put on a light makeup. A message from Abuaje instructed her to send him a location. After a few minutes, she found a luxurious car waiting for her outside with a driver. This unexpected turn of events left Abba feeling grateful and excited for the night ahead. The driver took her to the richest part of the city and parked in front of a lavish restaurant. A woman greeted her with flowers at the door and led her inside, where she found Abuaje sitting alone in the restaurant. He looked very handsome in a suit, and Abba couldn't help but smile when she saw him. But she was confused by what was going on, so she asked him what was happening. "You are a queen, and you deserve to be treated like one," Abuaje said as he stood up and pulled out a chair for her. In the days that followed, Abba discovered Abuaje's true identity. Suddenly, Abba's life changed. He moved them from the kiosk to a spacious 3-bedroom apartment. Understanding Abba's dreams and aspirations, he immediately arranged for her to enroll in the culinary school, supporting her in pursuing her passion for cooking. Shortly after that, she married Abuaje. Upon completing the school, Abuaje had a restaurant waiting for her. They traveled to different countries like she had always wanted. Majua and Abina had become inseparable best friends. Everything she had ever dreamed of had become a reality. Abuaje loved her deeply and unconditionally, and she felt the same way about him. Now, she was in a restaurant one day when she heard people shouting in the middle of the restaurant. Hold on. This was very unusual, so she went out to check the source of the noise. She saw a waiters and waitresses gathered around, watching a man the security man was dragging outside as he called the police. What is going on here? Abba asked them. They all turned to look at her. One of the girls explained that the man had come to the restaurant to eat and had tried to run out after eating without paying. He had been caught, so the security man was calling the police. The man turned around and their eyes met. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was Kofi, looking dirty and tattered. He had lost weight and he looked like an old man. His eyes were wide with shock and his mouth was opened as he stared at her. Can't you see he looks like a madman? Abba said. Let him go, but never allow him to come back here. Yes, madam. Everybody responded. Without looking at Kofi or saying another word, she walked back to her office, a smile of satisfaction on her face. It is high time some women realize that some men will see a greatness in you and will intentionally come into your life and mess you up. They will destroy you if you let them, just to humble you. Some men will intentionally impregnate you just so that they can keep you chained to them forever. Be smart and always observe people because they always tell on themselves. It is true that some men can pretend, but they cannot pretend for long. Something will always give them away. Most of the time we see it, but we choose to ignore it. The wrong man will mess you up, strip you of your confidence and dignity, take everything away from you and leave you with nothing. Always pay attention. Stay focused and stay true to yourself. The right man for you will want to see you grow and excel. It will be your cheerleader. Always pay attention. What do we think about the makeup? To be honest, I'm not really feeling today's makeup. The brows were not cooperating but I hope you love it though. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I hope you enjoyed this story. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, I'm done. Bye.